Welcome to this week's UEN Capital Video Update. I'm Margaret Buckton, your UEN Executive Director. In today's video, we're going to talk about the legislative processes, ups and downs, some important floor work in both chambers, what's coming up next, more floor work in the House and Senate getting ready for the next funnel deadline, advocacy action building on preschool and poverty momentum while improving processes in proposed bills. But before we get into that, we want to welcome Chad Aldis to Iowa as the new Department of Education Director. Governor Reynolds made that announcement through her press release on Wednesday of this week. He is a graduate from Clinton High School here in Iowa, and he says, like many Iowans, I owe much to the great public education I received. We need to make sure that today's students have the same opportunities to pursue their dreams. And then he also said that starts with all students leaving high school with the reading, math, and civics knowledge and skills to prepare them for either college or a career. And I'd be surprised if many of your mission statements and goals you have for your school districts don't echo some of those same sentiments. In looking at Mr. Aldis's bio, we know that he comes from the Thomas B. Fordham Institute and was the vice president for Ohio policy. He did all kinds of policy work in the Ohio General Assembly around school funding, charter school accountability, graduation requirements, school report cards, and private school choice. We are also going to look into some of those recommendations from the Fordham Foundation in Ohio and see if we can find some common ground and good policy that we would support here in Iowa. So, legislative process, ups and downs. This is the time in the session where it's just good for everyone to take a deep breath. The ideas surviving the first funnel are only partway through the process. The other chamber will have the opportunity to improve, perfect, or ignore what came to them from across the rotunda. The pace of education policy making has been lightning fast so far, but we really expect that things should be more deliberative and slow down over the next few weeks. So in the meantime, stay focused on building good relationships, find a way to say thank you to your legislators for things that they've done that have been helpful, and we'll keep nudging them toward better policy. So here's a bill that has gotten through both the House and Senate this week that we do support. It's Senate File 391, the Governor's School Flexibility Bill that deals with those Chapter 12 changes. The bill got through the Senate 33-17, including these 6 divisions: elimination of your CSIP, the Comprehensive School Improvement Plan, the teacher librarian flexibility, and some counselor work clarifications. It would allow up to 5 virtual days built into the school calendar. It changes some education standards. You could have agreements with community colleges to meet offer and teach requirements. It strikes the requirement that the district first demonstrate a good faith effort to hire a teacher in that content area, and then also eliminates the enrollment limitation, which prevented our urban education network schools from taking advantage of these waivers in the past. No longer a waiver required. You can just work with your community college to provide those courses. The 5th division is authorization to offer simultaneous sequential units, so one teacher who's appropriately credentialed can teach different classes during the same class period. And then lastly, educational standards. This is where many of the biggest changes are. Although we still have to teach financial literacy standards, there's more flexibility in how to do that, embedding them through other courses. And it eliminates the requirement that a student pass a financial literacy course for graduation. They require the district to offer 2 sequential units of world languages, that's down from 4, and 2 units of fine arts, that's down from 3, and then provides additional PE flexibility for students. And lastly, eliminated the requirement that students complete CPR training in order to graduate. But don't hold your breath on that one. It got over to the House, who amended their bill to match the Senate file and then further amended Senate File 391 a bit, sending it back to the Senate. And the main differences that the House made, they removed the PE flexibility opportunities for students, so that'll maintain current law. They reinstated the CPR certification for high school students, and then increased the world language requirement to 3. So it'll be down, instead of having to offer 4 sequential units of world language, it'll just be 3. So it goes back to the Senate, and we're registered in support of the bill. Senate File 482 regarding school bathrooms was also passed through the Senate this week. And this bill starts by saying in the Iowa Civil Rights Code that this law is, by definition, not discriminatory. And then it creates a new Iowa Code 280.33. regarding single or multiple occupancy restrooms and changing areas, so it would also apply to locker rooms, that requires use by persons of the same biological sex as on their birth certificate. Now, a student who for any reason wants more privacy, whose parent provides written consent to the school, may request alternative facilities. And then it defines a process for filing complaints if someone believes that the school is not following this law, including legal action against the district if the Attorney General thinks that that is appropriate. So the Senate passed the bill 33-16, sending it to the House. UEN is registered in opposition to the bill, primarily because it conflicts with federal Title IX law requiring accommodations for students. That moves over to the House. House File 430. This bill originally started out working in the area of mandatory reporters, and we were registered as undecided on the bill, but liked most of it. It clarified the processes about sharing information regarding former employees and their behavior, and the goal was to stop bad actors from moving district to district who were escaping that BOEE investigation. Well, the bill was significantly changed as it moved through the House. It requires a majority of members be parents on the BOEE, and we have all kinds of concerns about this, so we have changed our registration to opposed, and we'll work on the Senate to get that change taken out of the bill. Now, another thing that you can talk to your senators about and express some thanks that they're considering this is Senate File 480. It's about public notice, and it would have the Secretary of State's office create a website, host and maintain that, by which all local governments could satisfy the requirements for public postings. It goes into that Iowa Code 279.36, which regulates schools, and takes out the requirement that you have to post in a newspaper in general circulation in the district. So that's for minutes and agendas and notice of public hearings and ballot language for ballot initiatives, all kinds of things that require public notice today. The bill has gotten through the Senate Education Committee, and yesterday got through the Senate Ways and Means Committee and moves to the Senate calendar. So contact your senators and let them know that we support it. Coming up next, more bills are going to go from one chamber to the other side as they get through those debate calendars. The next final deadline is March 31st, by which time bills have to get out of the other chamber's committee. So a House file has to get out of a Senate Education Committee. A Senate file has to get out of a House Education Committee. We expect the list to get much smaller as we go along. Your advocacy actions for the week, preschool and poverty momentum. We got these conversations started this week. These two bills did not get out of the House Education Committees, but don't give up. House File 297 involves preschool weighting. It would have a weighting of 1.0 for students that are 4-year-olds coming from families below 200% of the federal poverty level. Talk with your House members about the return on investment regarding quality preschool. It's a win-win-win for students, employers, and taxpayers. Students have higher achievement. Employers have a workforce that can afford to go to work and not have to worry about where their kids are. It also frees up additional childcare slots if those 4-year-olds are in preschool for the full day. And of course, taxpayers save money down the road as they don't have to pay for expensive special education or even the consequences of not graduating, the things that happen when we don't provide quality preschool for our students. House File 477 is a poverty study committee. It is sponsored by 3 legislators, 2 of which are Republicans, 1 Democrat. We like to see that bipartisan sponsorship. It was introduced late last week, so did not get a subcommittee in time to survive the final deadline. But it reintroduces the conversation that started with the 2019 Interim School Finance Committee that was a bipartisan unanimous recommendation that Iowa needed to look at what other states are doing to adequately fund lower-income schools where poverty is concentrated, and efforts that are effective in closing the achievement gap. So look to the UEN website for background resources in those issue briefs and talking points that you can share with your legislators, and keep talking about these 2 priorities for the UEN. And then advocacy actions involving a little bit of cleanup. That House File 430 mandatory reporter bill specifically asks your senators to reinstate the makeup of the Board of Educational Examiners. And it would be okay to add another parent or 2 if they want more parent input, but not the drastic change from the House. House File 604, which is on the House calendar, deals with ombudsman reporting and a discipline policy. We wrote it up in last week's report. So check that out if you want some more information. But this one-size-fits-all policy doesn't recognize school differences or federal special education law. Ask your House members to require a school board policy on discipline, and it's okay for it to be graduated, but do not require one specific approach be implemented statewide. Thanks to our UEN corporate sponsors. We appreciate their support and connection to urban school districts. Check out the corporate sponsorship page on our UEN website for more information about how to access their services. If you have a company or service that you think would be supportive of urban schools and like to connect, send them our way. Check out the UEN website if you want to access those issue briefs, legislative updates, links to these videos, calls to action, and advocacy resources. Thanks for all you're doing in advocating for the students in your schools. We'll see you next week.